Welcome back, SBT fans, for another Power Rankings video. In the Week 6, I have with me Tyler, the Canadian kid.
What's up, guys?
And we just want to address the fact that, yes, this is Week 6. Week 5, unfortunately, was not recorded. But as you can see throughout the rest of the video, we will have Week 5's PRs posted to the left, so you guys can compare with Week 6. And we have posted Week 5 PRs in the Discord server itself, thanks to Tyler. But we're here in Week 6, and we've rebranded, of course, as you can probably tell. We are no longer ABCD. We now have our Challengers division, our Guardians division, our Victors division, and our Conquerors division. So without further ado, Tyler can go ahead and reveal our bottom half, our Challengers division.
Alright, so to start us off in the Challengers division at number 16, we've got Nico for a second week straight, and the Spartan Samurats, who lost against Steph this week, and that 5-0 just kept them at the bottom of the leaderboard, unfortunately. Yeah,
it was a very weak showing, unfortunately, for Nico this week, and he kind of has to stick at the bottom. I know Nico's a great coach, and you know, I'm not sure if he's just not getting in his groove for these last couple weeks, but definitely need to step it up for these next couple weeks, because we are entering into the range of playoffs, and at this point everyone needs to get their A game in check. But moving up above Nico at number 15, we have Harbor and his No Point No Runs for his third consecutive week being at number 15. And he played against Rozzy this week, and of course a very tough opponent. Rozzy definitely had the upper hand in that match the entire way. I don't think he ever gave Harbor the opportunity to really have any kind of momentum. And it was just a very strong showing for Rozzy. Unfortunately for Harbor, kind of has to stick at the bottom for right now.
Next up at number 14, we've got Bolus and the Boston Blissies. And Bolus actually got 6-0'd by John this week, which was a rough showing for him. And that obviously couldn't bring Bolus up in the rankings, so there was only one way, and that was down, and he went down one spot from last week.
Yeah, unfortunately Bolus again sticking really close to the bottom. But you know, only 4 more weeks, and hopefully Bolus can start climbing back up and hopefully make it into playoffs. But above him at number 13, we have Zach and his Chicago Corviknights, who dropped 2 spots this week. Zach continuously dropping in the power rankings just due to a very unfortunate loss streak. You know, he started off very strong in the beginning of the division, the beginning of the season. But Zach, I don't know if it's just his team or he's not getting his niche with what his team is capable of doing. But he faced off against George this week, and he got 6-0'd, and it was a very strong showing for George. Like, what Zach might have misplayed doing, and I think I was talking to you about it, Tyler, was or we were talking about it, was you know, Zach kind of just let George's Mega Diancie just set up. He set up a rock polish and a couple calm mines, and at that point Zach just didn't have any more responses, because rocks were up and the Donovan obviously would have lost his sturdy. So the Diancie pretty much ended up sweeping him in the late game. And at the same time, Zach also did not have Unburden on his Halucha, which might have helped him actually, you know, not get 6-0'd there. But unfortunately, you know, Zach was doing all he could to try and get back in the match, but the Mega Diancie was just too much for him in the end game.
Yeah, letting that Mega Diancie setup was really tough on Zach, and he literally had nothing, and he literally let it set up and kill his bots before he actually switched out and tried to stop it from doing so. Anyways, next up at number 12, we've got Ganon and the Cranburn Crowbats. And Ganon actually got 5-0'd by Cammy this week, which is not bad considering Cammy is still one of the 2 undefeated coaches in the SBT at this very moment. And it's it seems very hard to stop Cammy right now, as he's already taken down most of the top guys in the PRs and most of the top guys in D-League at the moment, which we had placed very high. So we'll see who can actually accomplish that feat. But for now, Ganon stays put at number 12.
Yeah, Ganon unfortunately does not drop at all, just because his performance this week was just a bit better than the rest of the coaches beneath him. But he did get 5-0'd, which is not very good at this point in the season. And Ganon sitting at number 12. I think he made a joke at some point earlier in the weeks saying that, you know, he should get an award for how many times he jumps up and down in the power rankings, because he does tend to do that. But at this point, he stays at number 12 from a similar spot last week. And you know, if he wants to jump up and try to take down another giant in the PRs, then he will jump up, because, you know, there's still 4 more weeks, and it's not you know, it's not that far away. You know, we have 10 weeks in the season, so maybe Ganon can get a few more wins and hopefully try to make playoffs still. But above him at number 11, we have Daniel and My Horse, who drops 2 spots this week. Daniel, you know, he did finally get a win last week against a really tough opponent, but this week he faced off against Cyan and he got 6-0'd. And Cyan, of course, you know, he's jumped up and down between the power rankings as well, but getting 6-0'd by Cyan, definitely not the greatest. You know, Daniel, he had the momentum last week. He got a really strong win, but this week he you know, he might have lost it or somewhere down the line. Getting 6-0'd, definitely not a good showing for him this week, and he's gonna have to stick at the bottom of the PRs for right now.
And next up, at number 10, we've got the other end of that match in Cyan, the Toxicities. And like we just said, Cyan actually went up 4 spots this week, from number 14 all the way up to number 10 following that win.
Yeah, him and his 6-0. You know, we already talked about it. Him getting a very strong win against Daniel. I believe it was the Zero Aura that actually stopped Daniel from really doing much. And Cyan had brought a really strong Zero Aura set against Daniel's team. He brought the sub bulk up, plasma fists, and I believe the last move, if I remember correctly, the last move was Drain Punch, and it was pretty much just a wrap once Cyan was able to get a few bulk ups up and then a sub, and a very smart bring on Cyan's end to bring that powerful Zero Aura set. Zero Aura, again, really powerful force to be reckoned with. So it saved him that match, and you know, obviously got him a few spots up. But above Cyan there, at number 9, we have Photon and his Tennessee Toxicities, another Toxicities team, who actually lost his match this week and had to just drop the 1 spot. You know, he ended up losing against Wolf. Wolf was rated at number 10 last week, but with Photon at number 8, you know, he kind of has to just stick in that same range. He didn't lose by too much, like he only lost a 1-0, but it came down really close. And of course, with them being in the middle of the division, it's you know, you kind of either drop really low or you kind of just stick in the same spot, but you can't really move you up too much there.
So next up at number 8, we've got Wolf from the Brampton Ursaring. Wolf actually beating Photon, like we just said, this week, and Wolf goes up 2 spots following that win, from number 10 up to number 8. And that was a great match. And unfortunately, Photon forgot to bring the speed boost on Mega Shark, but it's a mistake most of us have already made. If it's either not bringing speed boost, forgetting to put contrary on a superior to lose you the game, a bunch of small mistakes that get overlooked in prep, and Wolf got the better end of it this week.
Yeah, definitely unfortunate. You know, bringing the shark. The thing is that Photon never actually mega evolved the Sharpedo during that match, and he had it in for a few turns. Like, you know, if you don't have speed boost on your normal shark, you might as well just mega evolve and get the extra damage output. But he kind of just kept it regular. I'm not too sure why, if there was a strategy there. If there was, I missed it. But Wolf was able to just pretty much wall it out with his Venusaur. Of course, Python taking down Venusaur quite the ways. A leak Surfetched, with Brave Bird, very powerful, breaks down Venusaur for sure. But Wolf was able to clutch it out, I think, with the Scarf Tyrantrum in the end game. So very, very strong win for Wolf there. But moving up to number 7, we have Paco and his Charlton Gasserons, who actually has to move down quite a ways this week, just because of his loss against Tyler B. Now, he did lose against Tyler B, who was ranked number 1 for the last 2 weeks. And of course, losing against the top seed, it's always tough, but Paco doesn't move down way too low on the PRs, just because he still has had some powerful performances, and we know that he can do well. And his match against Tyler B, of course, was still very good. It's just that I don't think he anticipated Tyler B's Belly Drum Charizard this week, which is a very good bring on Tyler's end. And of course, all his attempts at trying to set up against Tyler, it just didn't end up fruitful for him. But very commendable again, because of the fact that Tyler B's team is very defensive. He does need to bring some wall breakers, but he just ended up coming short in that match, and so he does have to drop a few spots for Paco.
Yeah, for sure. Tyler being on a really good form lately, and he's one of the coaches that are going to be hard to take down in D-League in the following weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Next up at number 6, we've got John and the Dubai Trapions. And John actually pulled out a 6-0 against Bolus this week, like we said earlier. And it was a very good match for John, as he's been on a good form this season. So it's very interesting to see what he's going to do with this team and how far he's going to take it.
I agree. It was a very strong showing on John's end. And, he's been on top of his game for most of the season so far. If I remember correctly, he's only been as low as the number 10th spot so far in the past couple weeks, but he's starting to climb back up. Now he's in the top 6. He's in the top half of the PRs, and hopefully, if he stays on this the streak that he has going, he can make the playoffs and hopefully promote. You never know. But above him at number 5, we have Brazzy and his 2 spoons, 1 Zam, who moves up 1 spot. And he goes up 1 spot because he did beat Harbor a 5-0, and of course Harbor being very low on the PRs, you can't really give him too much credit for winning. But getting a 5-0 is still very commendable on his end. Rozzy definitely playing his pieces properly, pivoting out into Blissey, which teleports back into the Gallade. It's a very standard procedure for Rozzy, and he was able to get the momentum he needed. And getting a 5-0. Still very strong, especially at this point in the season. He knows how his team works. Sitting at number 5 is it's no easy feat. As being in the top 5, definitely going to get you into playoffs. And the next couple for the next couple weeks, if he's able to stay at that number 5 spot, or even move up to number 4 or 3, Rozzy is definitely going to make playoffs for sure.
So next up at number 4, we've got Steph and the Ontario Lucarios, and Steph got a 5-0 this week, but unfortunately still has to demote just because some other coaches had to go up higher than he has. And it wasn't because he played poorly, but the fact that he beat Nico, who was already at number 16, just made it very hard for us to keep him in the top 3 when the other coaches had great games also, but against coaches that were ranked higher than Nico was. So Steph obviously unfortunately had to take a blow for it, and he just went down 1 spot in this week's PRs.
So above Steph, we have George at number 3 and his Tectonic Typhlosions, who ended up with a win. And George moves up 2 spots this week. He did really well against Zach, like we said. It pretty much just wrapped up the game with his Mega Diancie. Left it in regular form, of course, to eat hits better. He was taking those sludge waves. Luckily, did not get poisoned at all. I think that's what Zach was going for, was a poison at that point. He set up a rock polish, set up a couple calm mines, and it was just a wrap. Moonblast cleaned up the rest of the team. There was really no losing for George at that point. He got the couple wins a couple kills that he needed with Diancie, and then in the back he still had other responses for the rest of Zach's team. So George definitely has to move up to that number 3. Like, we had to move him above Steph even because of that fact. 6-0, very strong performance at this point in the season. In week 6, if you're still getting 6-0s, it still means that you're a really strong force, and you'll make playoffs, 100%.
Next up at number 2, we've got Cammy and the Loch Ness Lombres. And Cammy, obviously, like we said earlier, one of the only 2 undefeated coaches in the SBT at the moment. And he had a 5-0 against Ganon this week. But unfortunately, that 5-0 was not enough to get him over Tyler B and the Villanova Torcats. So he has to stay put at number 2 where he was last week. And like we said, Cammy has been playing very well all season. And if he keeps going like this, he's definitely going to be one of the favorites to take home the D-League title. And he's going to be a very interesting coach to watch come playoffs.
Yeah, I agree. At this point, I'm pretty sure, the top coaches, being like Cammy and Tyler, they're all kind of clinching the playoff spot. I don't think they've clinched yet, but either way, I know that Cammy's probably been fiending for that number 1 spot for the longest while. He's been sitting at number 2 for since week 3. And the reason he's undefeated, which obviously makes him a really good contender for the number 1 spot, but it's just because Tyler B has been playing foes that have really strong performances as well, and they're also sitting higher on the PRs than what Cammy's opponents have been at. Cammy, of course, doing phenomenally, and it just comes down to whenever Tyler chokes. That's pretty much it. If Cammy can get over Tyler, then he might do it in the next couple weeks. But otherwise, definitely going to be facing off. Like, I'm really interested to see their face-off match in playoffs when it comes time, because I know both of them will make it up there. But since we're talking about Tyler B, we might as well move up to our number 1, and it is Tyler B and his Villanova Torcats, who ended up winning his match again, like we said, against Paco. Pretty strong performance, like pretty standard procedure for Tyler B at this point. Like, his team, it doesn't do one thing, but what it does very well. It regenerates, it wears down his opponent to the point where he finally in the end game, whether it's like 70 turns for the end game, he's able to bring in either his Charizard or another strong threat for his opponent. And this time around, it was a Belly Drum Charizard with Roost, Fire Punch, and I think a Dragon Claw, and that was just enough to break down Paco's team. Like, he was actually able to get off 2 Belly Drums in one match, and letting that happen is not the best, of course, but Belly Drum Charizard cleaning up in the late game for Tyler B. Very, very good prep on his end. I think he saw a very good opportunity for Charizard to come as a very offensive threat this time around. Like, didn't need Dragon Dance, and he was just able to clean up. It was just as simple as that. So Tyler B sticks at number 1 for this week as well. I think that's 3 consecutive number 1 spots for Tyler B this power ranking season. So very good showing from Tyler B. But that's gonna wrap up our Challengers division, guys, and I hope you guys enjoyed that. We're gonna move up to our Guardians division, where I'm gonna let Tyler reveal the number 16 spot. Go ahead, Tyler.
Kicking off at number 16 in the Guardians division this week is gonna be Pierre and the St. Louis Scissors, and that was quite a drop, if I have to say so myself. And Piranha actually went down from number 11 all the way down to number 16 this week, after getting 6-0'd by Griffin, who was at number 16 last week, and getting swept by the number 16 seed always brings you down quite a lot in PRs. And unfortunately, Piranha is on the back end of this one this week.
Yeah. And you know what? His performance this week, I think I've said it before, but for Piranha, still kind of rushing the match. I'm not too sure if it's his prep, but he almost just let Griffin, predict him a lot of the time. And when your opponent can predict you, it's pretty much the game, because you're fighting against yourself, really. Your opponent's just predicting every move that you're making, and Griffin just had all the momentum in that match. We can move up to our number 15, where we have Ghost in his Brisbane Zero Aura FC, dropping down 2 spots this week. Ghost, seeing him all the way at the bottom at now in the season, when he started really high. It's interesting to see how much you can drop, especially from the top of the division, where Ghost was actually number 1 in PRs, I believe, in week 1. So now seeing him at number 15, really hard to imagine. But he did get he did lose 6-0 this week against Nathan. And again, losing 6-0 in PRs, it really does hurt your standings. I'm not too sure if it was his prep this week, but Nathan really just had a strong showing this week, and just didn't let Ghost have any kind of momentum at all. So he does drop to the number 15 spot.
Next up at number 14, we've got Cello going the Copenhagen Canines. And Cello actually got 6-0'd by Sacred this week, so that's our third 6-0 in a row.
Yeah.
And it's very hard not to be near the bottom when you get 6-0'd by lower seeds. And Sacred was actually at number 14 last week, so getting 6-0'd by the number 14 spot earns you that number 14 spot. And Cello actually went down 4 spots this week.
Mm-hmm. And I think
that was unfortunate.
I think, was it Cello trying to get his matches out as much as he could? He's going on vacation, I believe, but I don't know if it was just him rushing his prep, but really,
it's always hard to prep for a Volcarona as it is, and if you rush prep against a Volcarona, you're most likely going to get swept against it. So
I don't know
if I remember correctly, there was one crit that was very unfortunate.
It was the
Colossal, I think it was on Colossal, so that was unfortunate, because apparently that was not going to kill, and
well, I'm not
Colossal
sure,
obviously would have revenged with the Rock Blast, but
I think the Volcarona was already at +2 at that point. I'm not sure if he could have been at +1, but yeah, the crit most likely mattered. Hidden power isn't that strong, but it was 4 times effective, so not sure. Colossal, it does have a bit of bulk on him though. But if it wasn't for that, like you said, it wouldn't have come down to a 6-0. It might have come down a bit closer, we're not sure. But that's just the way the game goes. You get crit sometimes, and of course having hidden power. You've seen hidden power enough times to know that it can be there, especially on a Volcarona, when Volcarona doesn't have anything else to hit fire types with, besides like Psychic and whatnot. But yeah, getting 6-0, the bottom 3 coaches getting 6-0 this week, that you're probably going to be on the bottom of the PRs. But moving up to our number 13 spot, we have Ballistic and his Oregon Golducks, moved down 1 spot this week. And the match, it came down to a 3-0 against him. He played Goomba, who was sitting at number 15 this week. Goomba, being lower seed than Ballistic in the first place, of course Ballistic has to drop. Ballistic is still one of those odd coaches. He does have a win, and his win was against Rin, who was sitting at the number 1 seed, I believe 2 weeks ago. And after that, Ballistic really hasn't been gaining too many wins. Like, he started off at the bottom, got a win, and then started dropping down. I'm not too sure if it's again his prep or his team isn't performing as well as he wanted to. Definitely gonna have to drop to number 13 at that point if he loses to the number 15 spot.
Next up at number 12, we've got Goomba and the Detroit Dittos, and we pretty much just talked about that match, but that was good for Goomba, actually picking off his first win of the season. and that's earned him 3 spots in this week's power rankings, as he went from number 15 to number 12.
Yep, Goomba. We now don't have any winless coaches in the Guardians division, which is really good. Goomba had a really nice showing there, getting a 3-0 against Ballistic. So he gets to move up, and I'm glad. Goomba was sitting at the 15th spot, I believe, for the last actually for the last 4 weeks. I'm not too sure on that, but yeah, Goomba finally gets to climb up, and maybe this is the start of something, because it might get him some momentum to keep getting those wins, and he definitely needs some wins because it's getting closer to that point in the season. But moving up to our number 11, we have Griffin and his Rhyme City Ride-Ons, who does move up 5 spots this week. Not too much to get him over into the the 10th and above seed, but Griffin definitely gets to move up due to his 6-0 this week. Where he 6-0'd Pierre, who was also at number 11 last week, and he played a really good game. It wasn't so much that his game was the top of the top. It was more so that Pierre was letting Griffin get the momentum, letting him predict him. It was more so Pierre kind of just falling at that point. But Griffin, you can't say too much. When you get a 6-0, definitely have to move up. So that's just going to be him at number 11. We already know what his team does. Very offensive, very sand-based, very if he's not clicking buttons, he's going into Ditto or something. But Griffin, he started off that match differently this time around, where he brought screens, Oranguru, I believe. That kind of helped him in certain respects. But Griffin cleaning up late game with his sand cleaners, it was just enough for him to get him that 6-0. So I commend him for that.
Next up at number 10, we've got Ryan and the London Lucarios. And Ryan actually went down 1 spot this week after facing Swampy. And Swampy has been on a roll lately, and taking down Ryan, who's one of the very good coaches in C-League, just proves how much Swampy is a force to reckon with. And Ryan lost 2-0, which was actually very close. And it was a great match, to say the least.
It was a good match, yeah, like you said. I believe Ryan brought the proper sets to make sure that Swampy didn't set up on him. Swampy brought some very interesting setup this time around, but Ryan did bring phasing. I believe he brought Roar on. I believe he brought Roar on his Aggron or something like that. So that was very nice to see. He definitely needed some phasing in this match, because it was a very heavily setup-based game. He did well, but he still has to drop down, unfortunately, for that match. So Ryan still has a really good chance to climb back up, so hopefully we can see that. But above him at number 9, we have Sacred TD and his Los Angeles Dodrio, who moves up quite a lot this time around due to his 6-0 against Salapio. A very strong match on his end. Sacred, getting the 6-0 with his Volcarona, setting it up properly. It's a really hard to counter when the Volcarona starts setting up, especially if you don't have something sashed or anything of that sort. But Sacred brought the proper set, and like we said, he just set it up properly. He got in the position he needed to, and he just swept like he needed to. So he moves up 5 spots due to that win, and he's sitting pretty nicely at number 9. Hopefully he can continue that streak.
Next up at number 8, we've got Aaron and the Los Santos Septiles. And Aaron actually played against Rin this week and lost 1-0, which got him down from number 7 to number 8 in this week's PRs. And that was another great match this week. It was fun to watch, but unfortunately, Aaron couldn't get the better of Rin.
Yeah. For the last 3 weeks, Aaron's kind of just been sitting in the middle of the pack there. We know Aaron from his last showing last season in in the D League, which is now the Challengers League. He was always sitting at the top. You know, he pretty much came out with the first seed in that division. But now he's kind of just sitting in the middle of the pack. I'm not sure if his attention or priority are divided, but he lost the 1-0 against Rin, and it came down to a really close match. And I think Aaron was almost brought the match back, but Rin still had sacks. He still had a lot of mons in the background, and he was able to pull the win. So Aaron sitting at number 8 for right now. Not too bad. I know Aaron can still continuously climb, especially with his team. So moving up to our number 7th spot, we have Major Comeback and his All Asian Almamolas, who is now not part of the division anymore. We're not going to spend too much time talking about him, but he drops the 1 spot. It was a forfeit loss to Quality, and you know, Major, we're sad to see him go, but we are happy to introduce a new coach to the Guardians division, someone that we've been wanting in the league for some time now. That's going to be X-Gamer Pokestar. Welcome to the division. I'm not sure if you're watching this right now, but you're going to be taking over Major's spot there at number 7, and we hope to see you do well.
So next up at number 6, we've got Nathan and the Charlotte Chimchars, and Nathan actually pulled out a 6-0 against Ghost this week, and Ghost was one of the favorites coming into the season, as he had a pretty high spot in the PRs for like the first 3-4 weeks. And unfortunately things seem to have turned around, but it's never too late to turn it back around before playoffs, as there are still 4 weeks left, and a lot can happen in 4 weeks. And Nathan actually claiming 2 spots in this week's PRs with that 6-0 win against Ghost.
Yeah, you know, Nathan, yeah, he's done really well so far in the season, I'd have to say. He's always trying to stick to the top. I don't think I've seen him drop lower than, I don't know, like 6 or even 7. So Nathan, trying to stay at that top. I want to start gathering some knowledge on who's going to actually stay in the top in Guardians division at this point, because Guardians seem to get new drops. Some people end up getting 6-0'd, but I think Nathan is a coach that is going to try hard to make playoffs, and I think he has a really good chance to make it. I think he's one of the coaches that are definitely going to climb into playoffs, if not just sneak in there. But he's done well, especially with this 6-0 this week. You know, his team with Mawile is just very insane. You know, Mawile is a Pokemon that it can be very defensive, and it can also be a very big threat. So you can't let it get any momentum, otherwise it pretty much just claims a kill. But Nathan doing well to climb back into the top 6 there, so hopefully he can stay in there and potentially make playoffs. But moving up above Nathan, we have Quality Content in the Kairokoffs at number 5. We can't say too much on his match. You know, he was supposed to play Major. He ended up with a forfeit. He got the forfeit win, and that was just a wrap. Quality has to kind of just stay where he is right now. I know, you know, he's been doing well, especially in the beginning part of the season. I think he's another one of those coaches that potentially make playoffs if he continues on the streak that he's in. I think he's definitely going to make playoffs. It's hard to tell, but he'll probably make it in there, if not being one of the middle seeds for playoffs.
Next up at number 4, we've got Griffin and the Peterborough Palpitoads, and Griffin was one of the 2 coaches in our giant matchup this week, as he was at number 2 last week, facing off against Wavali, who was at number 1. But Griffin unfortunately could not pull out a win in this one, as Wavali got the best of him in a 1-0 battle, and it was a very close battle. But Griffin picking up the L, had to drop 2 spots down to number 4 this week.
Yeah, you know, it was a very, very good match. I'd recommend anyone who want to watch it. You know, you did a good job, bringing the, I think it was a Specs or Scarf Pyroar, one of the two, because he was doing a lot of damage. But Pyroar, not a mod that you see too often, especially doing too well, but he did very well against Valley's team, you know, just firing off hyper voices a lot of the time. So, you know, he did a good job in that regard, and then he tried to bring it back. So in the end game, it was the Swampert that was trying to win, and then the rain had run out. Valley was just able to bring his Megalate in like he normally does, and able to clean up in the end game. So, you know, Gry definitely did a good job this week, bringing it down to that 1-0. And I know that he's going to continue. I have a feeling Gry is also another really strong contender for playoffs. But moving up to another really strong contender for playoffs, we have Rin at number 3 in his Las Vegas Ludicolo, who moves up with a 1 spot. You know, in his match against Aaron, came down really close, but Rin, of course, able to pull off the win. Came down very, very close. He just moves up the 1 spot, just due to the fact that you know, he only ended up with the 1-0. But I know Ren he's going to continuously try to climb. You know, he was even number 1 during week 3 power rankings, but we'll see him climb up for sure.
Next up at number 2, we've got Swampy and the Seattle Swamperts. And like I said earlier in the video, Swampy is one of those coaches who turned his season around for the better, and he's definitely a force to reckon with, as we all know that Swampy is one of the very good coaches in C-League, and he's on a tear right now, and he's going to be very hard to stop. Once he gets the ball rolling, it's very hard to stop him in his tracks.
I agree. The top 3 in Guardians right now, they all have the same record. Well, you know, they all have the same win-loss record, 5-1, and it can go either way. Like Swampy, he played a really good match against Ryan this time around, and he brought certain things that tried to counter against. Like he brought the calm mind Cobalion, which you typically don't see too often. And then he brought, you know, obviously Sub, D-Dance, Gyarados, which was a really strong force against Ryan. Of course, Ryan brought the appropriate sets to stop him from doing that, but Swampy, I think he knew how to play that match well, and I think he was able to clutch it out in the end with Dragapult. And you know, it was just a really good match. And the Swampy, I believe, actually has the same record as our number 1 seed. It's the 5. He has 5-1 and a +12 differential. So moving up to our number 1, we have Valley in Seattle Primariners, who did really well against Gryon this week. Like we were saying, he made sure that you know, it did come down really close, but he did make sure to preserve his Mega Gallade in the end game, made sure it was really healthy, and then it obviously had enough bulk to take on the rest of his team. And once the rain had ran out, Mega Gallade was just able to come in late game and clean up, like Valley's done so many times before. You know, if there's a showing for why Mega Gallade should be on the fence for getting banned, you just look at Valley's matches this season, because Gallade sitting at 21 kills and 2 deaths is just insane. And you know, being able to use a mon like that efficiently, we already know how good Mega Gallade is, but seeing it perform this well, Valley, he definitely takes the number 1 spot this week, like he's done already a couple weeks back. I think he's been number 1 for the last week he was number 1, but prior to that he was also at number 1 spot in I think week 2. But yeah, not too much to say after that. You know, we have our Seattle teams at the top, and let's see who ends up taking the number 1 seed in the end. So that's gonna wrap up our Guardians division. Then, guys, we're gonna move up to our Victors division, where there was a few changes, and I'll let Tyler start at the bottom there.
At number 16 in our Victors division this week, we have Gene and the Ottawa Gengars. And it's been a rough season for Gene at the moment, but it's never too late to turn it around. Still 4 weeks to go, 4 battles to go, which can turn an entire season around and can potentially even get him a playoff spot if everything goes his way. It's going to be very hard to achieve, obviously, but it's still not impossible. And Gene actually lost 3-0 to one of our new coaches this week in Photon. And Photon the Goton actually got the best of Gene with that Zero Aura. And Zero Aura is always tough to deal with, but Gene goes down 2 spots, down to number 16 this week because of it.
Yeah, it's hard to see Gene at the bottom there, especially when he has a really good team, and I know how good Gene is. And I always like seeing the Belly Drum sub-Salic Gallard Darmanitan, and it did quite a bit, if not for the fact that Photon was prepared for that. Like he potentially could have won with that. I think maybe Gene had set up that Darmanitan too early in the game. Maybe he did, but it definitely did a number to Photon's squad. We need to just address the fact that yes, Photon is a new coach in the division, like you said, Tyler. He has to replace Charles, who unfortunately could not continue the season, and we wish him all the best. Him getting a new baby coming in soon. So Photon, we welcome you, and we'll be talking about him shortly. But moving up to our number 15, we got Now Adam in the Arson and Palms, who got a forfeit loss this week. He just moves down a couple spots just to accommodate for people that actually won. But we can't spend too much time talking about him because he just didn't play this match, and that's just the way it goes sometimes. It's not the end of the world. Hopefully Adam can continue the rest of the season. But that's going to be him at number 15.
Next up at number 14, we've got Leonard and the Azel Falkmar. And Leonard actually losing 5-0 to Rummy this week. And he went down quite a ways, going down 5 spots all the way to the number 14. And it was a pretty interesting match, but Leonard actually, like he said, he prepped to try to get a sweep, and that didn't work, and Rummy actually turned it around and did a number on him. So unfortunately Leonard grabbed the short end of that stick and had to go down quite a ways.
Yeah, Leonard, like you said, Tyler, was trying to set up for that sweep, and then Rummy just turned it around and got the reverse sweep. Like, he set up a trick room, he brought in Metal Metal just started going crazy, doing what it normally does. It just clicks double iron bash and it just destroys everything. But Leonard just couldn't keep up with that, unfortunately, and he gets the number 14 spot. Above him at number 13, we have Raven and his Destined Lucarios, who also drops quite a ways. He drops 5 spots this week. Raven actually lost to Witchard. Witchard, who has been close to the bottom for the first half of the season, finally getting a win, a win against a strong opponent as well in Raven. Raven's team just, I think, like, first of all, that match was pretty long. I think it went to like 80 turns or something, I'm not sure. But, after a while, Raven's team just could not keep up. I think there was, I don't know if there was too much hacks in that match. I think there was a couple. But eventually Raven's team started breaking down. He couldn't keep up with Witchard's counter prep there. And, he lost his responses for certain mons, and that was just a wrap for Raven. So he does have to drop a few spots, and we know this about his team already. Very bulky and very passive, but I don't even think he brought Altaria this match, which was very interesting. But that could have been his downfall there. But he's sitting at number 13 for right now. He's still a good coach. I know that he still has time to climb back up. So we'll see him try to get his streak back for the rest of the season.
Next up at number 12, we've got our new coach in Photon, the Goton, and the Nevada Necrozmas, and Almighty Photon, who replaced Charles, like we said earlier. And it's always nice to see new blood, new faces in the league. And pulling off the win against Gene is a big statement coming into the league, as Gene, obviously one of the coaches that came down from A last season. and making a statement win is always good when you come into a new league, and Photon did just that with that Zero Aura set, like we said earlier. And that win brought him up 3 spaces in this week's PRs to number 12.
Yeah, I agree. Our second almighty coach to join B-League, him and Crow. And I think it's also the second coach to join, to replace in B-League as well. So moving up to our number 11, we got Witchard and his superior Snom, who actually did get the win, like we were saying, against Raven. Getting that win, I think he really did a number to Raven's squad. He did bring the very nice D-Dance sub Kirim set with leftovers. Not seeing a Kirim with Roost is hard to understand sometimes, but I think that was a very appropriate Kirim set. It pressured Raven's team literally throughout the match. He was able to set it up a few times, and Icicle Spear and Dragon Claw really does hit everything on Raven's team for neutral or super effective damage. So he did do a good job of making sure that this weekend was weakened. He got everything else weakened, and then Witcher just sets up and was able to win. But it did become really frustrating after the first 30 turns or so, because nothing was dying and everyone was just pivoting out. But Witcher played the long game. He made sure that he preserved the mods that he needed to in the back, and he was able to pull off the win. So very good job, Witcher, for getting your first win in the season. Still another 4 weeks. If you get another 4 wins, maybe you sneak into playoffs. You never know. So, but for right now, sitting at number 11.
Next up at number 10, we've got Juke Lone and the Malibu Morlals, and all I can say about this is that Juke went up 1 spot due to reasons
Shuffling.
Pretty much only to accommodate the other coaches, and it was hard placing other coaches in these spots, but that match actually hasn't happened yet, so there's not much we can say about it.
Yeah, exactly. If a match doesn't happen, we can't really rank it, but Juke is sitting at number 10. At number 9, we have Crow and his Virginia Victinis, who actually did lose this week. He lost against Aaron this week. Aaron, still a very decent coach. Aaron was actually sitting at number 10 last week, so beating Crow, who was at number 7. They kind of just almost switched spots there, but Crow sitting at number 9. It came down really close, I believe. It came down to a prediction that Crow either didn't want to make or was fearful for trying to make it, but in the end game, when Darmanitan was in against Mawile, and he had the Slowbro in the back, I think actually Slowbro did get 2A KO'd coming back in, so really Aaron did have the match wrapped up at the end. And I think there was a point where had Crow made a prediction with Celesteela coming in on Mawile, he could have tried to turn it around there, because Mawile did have Thunder Punch, of course, for the Celesteela coming in. But he didn't go for it the first time, so maybe he wasn't exactly anticipating Celesteela coming in, but there were points where if Crow made the proper predictions, he probably would have ended up with the win. But it came down really close in the end, and he wasn't able to beat out that Darmanitan, so that's going to drop him just the 2 spots there.
Next up at number 8, we've got Rummy and the Lehigh Valley Phantoms. And Rummy actually beat Leonard 5-0 this week, and that 5-0 earned him 4 spots in this week's power rankings. And like we said earlier, that Trick Room Mel Metal did the number on Leonard's team, and Rummy actually playing very well lately, and it's always fun to see what he comes up with in his sets. And if he can keep it up, he's definitely going to be a coach to watch.
Yeah, Rummy's still, he's still a coach that pulls out some few tricks. You can't really predict him too much, which is good in his prep. But of course, Trick Room Melmetal is always a force to be reckoned with. If you don't have any responses for it, it literally just gets a chunk off on anything. And sometimes you can't have that when you don't have reliable recovery on some things. But that's gonna be Rummy. We're gonna move up to our number 7 spot in Air and the Baron. Colchester Cobalians, who ended up winning this week, like we said, against Crow. And it came down really close. We said, it was the Darmanitan at the end of the game that really pulled out the win. Even with a Slowbro that was at like 70%, Darmanitan coming in on Mawile and threatening with the Flare Blitz, Slowbro just could not switch in, and that kind of just earned him the win and earned him that 3 spots up. So Aaron's sitting at number 7. We already know that Aaron, he's gonna fight for that playoff spot, and he's really close to it. So we'll just have to see if he can climb his way into playoffs if he keeps going the way he's going.
Next up at number 6, we've got Joel and the Kattegat Corviknights, and Joel actually staying put this week, and that was the other end of the other half of the juke match. So like we said earlier, it didn't happen. We can't really say much about it.
Yeah, we can't say too much about it, and there's coaches above him that have done a lot better. So moving up to number 5, we have PZZ and his Seattle Sharpedos, who did end up with the win, but of course it was a forfeit on Adam's part, so really we couldn't talk too much about it. Like he just stays put for the fact that like he still gets the win. Doesn't count too much for power rankings, so you can't really talk too much about it. So just gonna move up.
Next up at number 4, we've got Risso and the Hell Creek Head Smash, and Riss actually facing off against Ampha this week. Ampha obviously one of the most threatening coaches in V this season so far, and Riss took a 3-0 loss this week, and that loss actually got him down 2 spots to number 4 in this week's PRs.
Yeah, I think the top 4 in Victors is pretty clear at this point. You have Riss, who's almost close to being the number 1 spot as well, if not for his match this week. But he kind of just came up a little bit short this week. Ampha did really well with the Go Lurk under Trick Room. He didn't really have too much of a response for it in the end game, he kept the Dragapult in the back, which is still a very big threat. Of course, I believe he was physical this time around, but his opponent in Ampha he kept the right responses to make sure that it was still in check. He had Sucker Punch. It didn't go exactly Riss's way. Riss did try to play around it. Riss always brings some very nice tech, and this time around it just didn't pan out for him. But still a really strong force and a contender for playoffs, absolutely. So moving up to our number 3 spot, we got Miles and his Bakersfield Beartics, who last week was at number 1, but was dethroned this time around from Pierre, who they played a really offensive match, him against Pierre. It came down, I believe, to a 2-0 in Pierre's favor, and Miles brought some really strong threats. He brought the Specs Toxicity, which was able to get a chunk off on Pierre's team. Pierre literally didn't have any switch-ins for that thing. Pierre doesn't have a ground type, so it's just pretty obvious just to bring a Specs electric type. I think if Miles had Sucker Punch or Shadow Sneak at the end with his Sableye, he would have been able to pull out the win. But the Alakazam, the Sashed Alakazam, was able to bring it back, unfortunately. And Miles just didn't have his Mamoswine in the end game either with his Bandit Shard, so he couldn't exactly pull out the win against the Sash Alakazam. Still a really strong match though, and I believe Miles, it could have gone either way, and Miles probably would have ended up with the win, like I said, if he kept some priority in the back.
Yeah, definitely. That was a very good battle to watch, and letting that Mamo fall early cost him in the end game, but it did a ton of work earlier in the game, so can't really complain about it. Yeah. Next up at number 2, we've got Pierre and the Pittsburgh Pussycats, and like we just said, Pierre had the Focus Sash Zam in the back for the end game, and it kind of swept his way to a W, and that W earned Pierre 2 spots in this week's power rankings. So that's good for Pierre, especially since I don't really respect the rain team. He already knows it, but I'm gonna keep saying it every week until he drops it. So.
Yeah, Pierre did a good job. It was tough to see because, again, like we said, he doesn't have a ground type. He got rid of his Mega Swampert, which I forgot about completely until I was talking about with Tyler earlier. He picked up Mega Scizor, which is still decent. Like, you know, Scizor in the rain isn't bad. You know, those fire type moves aren't going to be hitting as hard. But having no ground type against potential Specs Toxtricity is a big no-no. You know, he had to bring in his Zapdos, who I think was more bulky this time around, who still got 2-hit KO by that Toxtricity, if not for the fact that, you know, he was threatening for potential Hidden Power Ground or something. You know, he would have lost his Zapdos really early on in the game. Just having the Focus Sash Zam in the back definitely earned him that spot because, you know, Focus Sash Zam's still a good counter to a really strong Toxtricity set. You know, you can just take a hit and then fire back with a huge Psychic and take him out. Yeah, he did a good job. He earns him that number 2 spot. Pierre always been climbing this season. And it's always nice to see. You know, Pierre definitely brings some interesting sets, and I think he's only lost the one time, but he's making a break for playoffs for sure. So hopefully he can continue on, and maybe next week he'll make that number 1 spot. But moving up to our number 1, Ampha in his Minnesota Twin Needles, who won this week against Risso. And he moves up the 2 spots. Ampha trying to reclaim his number 1 spot. You know, he's been number 1 for the beginning part of this season, and now he's back, sitting up at that number 1 spot. He's trying to make sure that he never moves down again, and I think he's able to do it. Again, he just has a really strong team. His match against Risso was very, very good. You know, he turned the entire tide around with his Trick Room Golurk. Life Orb Golurk in Trick Room is very powerful, of course, and he just made sure to reserve his answers for that Dragapult in the end game. Like, he had a full health Skuntank, which definitely made it so that Dragapult wouldn't sweep. Like, he had Sucker Punch, he had Pursuit. He made sure that that Dragapult just didn't get any momentum at all. Like, Dragapult just couldn't come in knowing that the Skuntank was in the back. So a very good showing for Ampha. And Ampha, I know he's already going to make playoffs. Like, there's no question already. Like, he's a coach to be reckoned with in V-League, especially with the team that he has. It's a very strong force to be reckoned with. So then, that's going to wrap up our Victors division, guys. And we're going to move up to our Conquerors division. And whenever Tyler can, we can reveal our bottom part of the division.
So kicking off our Conquerors division PRs this week at number 16 is Starfish and the Lucky Liberos. And Star got 5-0'd by Cheese this week, unfortunately. And you could say that there was a bit of hacks, which is always unfortunate to see since Pokemon is that kind of game. And it can be very fun or it can be very sad, depending on which side the hacks are on. And sadly, Starfish has been getting the back end of this of these hacks pretty much all season, and that gets him the number 16 spot this week after he goes down 1 spot due to that loss.
Very unfortunate to see, of course, and not the best. You know, obviously, the Star's been on a losing streak for a little bit, but you know, you never know when the tide will turn in your favor, and you can always get some luck coming back for you. But we're going to move up to our number 15, who we have Piranha in his Washington Walreins, who I believe was actually our bottom for the last 4 weeks. And, you know, he still did lose this week. He played against Eagle, and it was still a really good showing on Piranha's part, you know. It only came down to a 2-0 in Eagle's favor. But the fact that he played like his hardest, he was still trying to climb, does earn him a spot above Star. So Piranha, you know, hopefully at some point in the season will finally get his deserved win. Like, he deserves a win at this point. but right now he still has to sit really close to the bottom at number 15 there.
Next up at number 14, we've got Jay and the Springfield Stallers. And Jay actually losing to Zombie this week, so that loss gets him to stay put at number 14. And Jay just couldn't get the better of Zombie this week, and yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Zombie played a really good match this week. I believe Jay actually has a brand new team now, because a lot of transactions were made, and I actually play him this week. We forgot to actually mention, guys. Jay is a newcomer from a lot of places. I think he's in Coliseum. I believe he's also in Hive, and he joined us last week. We're glad to have Jay on board. And now he has a brand new team, and there's still 4 weeks left, so we can actually see what he's made of with his brand new team that he has. He plays me this week, so I'm really interested to see what he can do. But moving up to our number 13, we have Skyquake and his Lancaster Rangers, who did lose again this week. He lost against Zane this week, and Zane played a really good match. Sky just wasn't able to keep up, unfortunately, with this team, and he kind of just doesn't move. Sky has been sitting at the bottom for a lot of the season. Just hasn't been getting the momentum that he needs, at least Sky keeps persevering, and he keeps trying to get the win. He is sitting at number 13 though, and he kind of just has to sit there for right now. The coaches at the bottom, they ended up losing, so it's really hard to rank them, especially with them doing kind of well and also trying to get the win. But number 13 spot for right now, we know that he'll move up eventually for the last couple of weeks here.
Next up at number 12, we've got Simi and the Blue Collar Blossoms. And Simi actually won this week, but it was a forfeit win, so he kind of has to stay put. It's always hard to move up someone when the battle didn't happen, because you don't really have a reason to bring him up. And sadly, that is Simi's case this week, who stays put at number 12.
Yeah, not too much to say. He kind of just has to stay there. His match against Dominus just didn't pan out, so he gets the forfeit win. But moving up to our number 11, we have Beater and his DC Darmanitan, who did lose this week. A very heavy loss this week against Stumbles. He lost 5-0. Stumbles, we already know how good Stumbles is as a coach. He has a really good team. But Stumbles just wasn't getting into his groove. Like, he wasn't finding the right niche with his team. I think he finally found it. He got a 5-0 against Beater, and it's a really good accomplishment for Stumbles. Beater, he came up kind of short in that match.
Zam with Calmine recovered and pretty much swept. Beater got full parrot on Milotic when he went for the Dragon Tail, but
it was unfortunate for Beater that his Melodic got paralyzed there. But Stumbles did bring Body Slam and Thunder Wave, and he was kind of, when you bring both of them, you kind of have to bank on some pairs here and there, and he did a good job. He was able to set up the Zam to I think like +2, and from there he kind of just snowballed, because there was just no more responses, and especially with Zam having recovered, like, Beater tried to wear him down to the point where he could get revenged, but with Stumbles having recover as well, Shadow Ball Psychic was all that he really needed to beat down Beater's team. So Beater just has to drop a few spots there, of course, 5 spots to be exact. Beater's always a good player, and he's a good coach, and he might even come back to the end part of this season.
Next up at number 10, we've got Techno and the Texas Magnemites. And Techno actually facing off against none other than Mams a lot this week. And unfortunately, for some reason, Techno got very salty and quit the match when he actually still had a shot. If all the hurricanes landed, he could pretty much just
Yeah, he needed to land all the hurricanes, but it was still a good.
It's not impossible because
Yeah.
it's still 70%. So landing 7 out of 10 hurricanes is always possible. And if that were a 7, he actually could have pulled it back against you. And the heat wave on the Melmetal, so he still had a very good shot at winning this game, but the salt was too much.
Yeah, it was definitely tough. I understand Techno's frustration though, because like he wasn't making the proper predictions. He was predicting, but he was kind of over predicting at the same time, which made it kind of easy for me to see his plan through. Like in the end, when he could have swapped in his Slowbro on my Metacham, predicting, like a Drain Punch coming out. But he didn't want to, because then I could have predicted that and I could have got Thunder Punch off, considering Slowbro was already really low. It was definitely tough for him to kind of predict properly, because when you're in that position, it's almost like you either have to make plays or you're gonna lose. And Techno was definitely trying to make those plays, definitely trying to come back in that match, but it wasn't enough. He didn't have enough pieces in that match, and he really just didn't have that many responses for Nasty Plot Rotom. Nasty Plot Rotom Wash is definitely a strong force, and he just didn't really have anything that was especially defensive enough to take those hits. So with him having to lose his Nihilego and his Tapu Koko really early on in the match, it really did hurt him on, because Tapu Koko would have done a lot of work to my team if it set up like that. Like, he did well to get rid of my Runerigus in the beginning of the match with the Scizor, because once Runerigus was gone, Tapu Koko could have done a lot of work, but unfortunately, he had to get sacked off to the Nasty Plot Rotom Wash. But I know Techno's still a really good coach, and I hope he doesn't get too discouraged by this match. It was really tough to come back in the end game. But moving up to our number 9, we have Zombie and his Victoria Victinis. Zombie, who actually won this match against Jay, did a really good job, and he's been very consistent. Like I was telling Tyler, Zombie's just been our number 9 for the last couple weeks. He dropped last week, but he made it back up to number 9 this week. So he's always kind of out of playoff range. He's trying to get into that playoff spot. At this point, it's really hard, but with the 4 weeks left, it's not that hard. It's not that much harder for him to climb. Being at number 9, he's still a very, very strong coach, and he has a new team now. Well, hopefully he does well with his new team that he has.
Next up at number 8, we've got Cheese in the Michigan Manectrics, and Cheese pulling out a 5-0 against Star this week, which gets him 1 spot in this week's power rankings. And unfortunately, it's pretty hard to move up a coach when you win against a coach that's rated low in the standings already, and when you win with like a bit of hacks, he still went up, but it's hard to bring him up a lot.
Yeah.
And it was still a good match, because G-Darm pretty much just clicked buttons.
G-Darm clicked Ice Will Crash, and he got a flinch, which was tough, but, I think it's a 30% chance. But Cheese definitely did well. He's a really good coach, you always see him at the top, kind of, if not in the middle area. But he moves up to number 8. Above him, we have yours truly and Tyler and the Canadian Kid with his Winnipeg Weaviles, who did end up losing. You did end up losing your match this week against Toxic. Toxic, really good coach. It's definitely hard for him to break his team. But you did have a lot of good responses. It's just, it was really hard to pivot in, especially with Mega Mawile being a huge threat. What do you have to say, Tyler? You have some words on that match there.
He basically won in prep. I kind of underestimated that Slowking, and I had no actual way of breaking it. And every time I bring Right Barrier in, he'd literally have a free Slowking, and that was pretty much all it was. I had no way of breaking his score, and that was very hard, since I had to try to make some predictions that didn't work very well, and he just got the best of me.
Yeah, it was definitely tough. Like I understand what you're saying when it comes to him preserving his walls properly. He did that a lot with me last week when I faced him. He made sure like he would get rid of one of my only offensive answers for like one of his walls, and that was Florges. And last week he got rid of my Metal, and then I kind of had to just throw whatever I could to break down his walls. And that's kind of how Toxic gets you. You know, he makes it so that he gets rid of your offensive answers to his walls, and then his walls kind of just sit there, and you're like, well, what do I do to this thing? So yeah, you definitely did a good job. But Tyler, you don't drop too much. You know, you obviously faced a really good coach at the top of the PRs, so sitting at number 7 right now. But we can move up.
At number 6, we've got Stumbles and the Cleveland Creselias, and Stumbles has been performing well lately. Obviously losing to Cheese last week, even though it happened a few days ago, because that match was postponed and it just happened. So Stumble is actually going up to number 6 with that win, and earning 4 spots all the way up to number 6. And like we said earlier, that Zam was just too much to handle for Beater, unfortunately, after he got that pair of hacks on the Melodic, which stopped him from actually phasing out that Zam. And Zam just pretty much clicked Calm Mind Recover and swept.
I agree. You know, Stumble's a very awkward coach to place, simply because you know, he doesn't have too many wins under his belt, but he still has a really good team. He's still a good coach. It's really hard to place him sometimes because, like we said, he doesn't have too many wins, but he's climbing up. Like if he continues this sort of streak that he has going, he'll definitely try to sneak his way into playoffs. But number 6, you know, it's just a testament for how well he's did. Like he beating out Beater, which again has been sitting up top for a lot of the season. So Stumble sitting at number 6. We move up to our number 5, who we have at Zane in his St. Louis Cardinals, who moves up 3 spots. You know, Zane beating out Skyquake this week. Now it was kind of difficult to place again for Zane because he did beat a coach that was sitting at number 13, but it was a really strong win. You know, he played the match well. He made sure that he had everything in his power to take down Sky's team. I believe he brought a really interesting Halucha set. I can't remember if the Halucha was like banded or something, but it was doing a lot of damage to Skyquake's team. And you know, bringing funky sets like that, definitely unpredictable and stuff that throws his opponents off. So Zane can sit up there. He's been up in the top. We've seen him at the top before, so you know, it's no surprise he's sitting at number 5 right now.
Next up at number 4, we've got OD and the Croatian Crawdons, and unfortunately OD got a forfeit loss against Chris, against Simi, and that forfeit loss dropped him 2 spots, and unfortunately we've had to let go of OD since for inactivity reasons. I've heard that his PC died, but we can't really keep going with this, and we're glad to bring in Slick Panther in the next coming weeks, and it's going to be interesting to see how he carries over this playoff team and what he does with it.
Yeah, you know, especially with OD's team already being so high up in the power rankings and the standings, we're happy to have Slick join us, and you know, we're really excited to what he brings to this division. Still just as strong, if not like on par with the Ominous Draco. We're really sad to see him leave, of course, and you know, just if you're too inactive, it's kind of tough to have us continue on with you, because we still need the league to continue, and we can't always wait for you to respond. It's tough, but that's just the way it goes. And OD, hopefully he you know, he perseveres in the rest of his endeavors. But we're happy to have Slick with us. So moving up to our number 3, we have Eagle Gene and his Ottawa Raptors, who did end up with the win this week. But sadly we couldn't just move him up. He played against Piranha, who was rated at the number 16 spot last week. It came down kind of close. He ended up freezing Piranha's Snorlax with his Manaphy, and in the end game he was able to kind of use that to his advantage, and then just clean up with Garchomp, I believe. It was still a decent match. Eagle, obviously he got the win. We just can't move him up above the top 2 because his win just wasn't as convincing. So that's Eagle at number 3.
Next up at number 2, we've got Toxic and the Texas Tornadoes. And like we said earlier, Toxic pretty much beat me in prep. He outplayed me every turn that game, and there was just not much I could do. He deserved that top 2 spot, and that win brought him up 2 spots in this week's PRs.
Yeah, we already talked about it, like you said. It's kind of hard not to move Toxic up like all the way to number 1, but Toxic, he played it well against you. He's just a strong coach. He anticipates things that a lot of coaches probably don't. Like I think he was thinking that you were gonna bring like Twister on your Pidgeot. I'm not sure if that was a joke, but obviously Hurricane's stronger. You just Toxic was like we said, Toxic. He just makes sure that he keeps his walls in check. He really does well to make sure that he gets a good differential at the end of the match. But he's gonna be at number 2. Moving up to number 1, I guess. I could talk about myself. I'm gonna be at number 1. The Durham Dragonaires, once again for the last 2 weeks, been sitting up there. My match against Techno this week, I really wanted to stay at number 1, so I brought Banded Melmetal, and once I made the proper prediction for it seems to people like, if they bring a Rocky Helmet Water type, they can beat Melmetal, but it's just too obvious at this point that, Slowbro is going to come with a Rocky Helmet. It's not too hard to understand. Rocky Helmet kind of beats out Melmetal, but if I'm able to predict that, it's really not too much of a counter. He swapped in his Slowbro in Electric Terrain to my Banded Thunder Punch, and I did a clean 80% to him. So I don't know. It was a tough match for both of us, and Techno, of course, he couldn't continue that match at the end, but still played a really good game and made sure the beginning of the match he got rid of checks to his Tapu Koko, and that was pretty much it. It's just, again, in prep, I noticed that Rotom Wash, it just did really well with a Nasty Pod up, so kind of just used that early on to break his team, and then from there it wasn't too hard to get Metacham into a good spot to kind of clean up in the end game. Noivern, of course, was a big issue, but I made sure that Melmetal was also very specially defensive, kind of to take him on, and he was still relatively at a high amount of health, so that was just the game. And staying at number 1, I hope to continue staying there. It's tough to be undefeated in the top division, but try my best.
Man's out here flexing on the Conquerors coaches.
They're all really good coaches, and somehow I'm able to make my way to the top. But it's a tough division. It's not easy every single week to try to get the win out. But yeah, I think that's gonna wrap up our Conquerors division and just our power rankings in general. So thanks again, guys, for waiting so long for our week 6 power rankings. I know it's been a while since we released. Since week 5 we kind of missed out on it, but it gets kind of busy during the season, and there's still 4 more weeks. So guys, be on your A game, because we're getting into the home stretch on who's going to make playoffs, and you definitely want to make playoffs if you hope to promote. So that's going to be us signing off. So we'll see you next week, and take it easy.